And you see in the picture that is a man is standing over there. He might be, not might be, the poster says that this is Russian, and another one that is English, okay? And misperson never comes alone. Okay? Please don't talk. Okay? So you see that a person, that means in SLA, that is everybody is supposed to learn the second language. Second language can be called L2. And first language we know that is L1. And in L2 and L1 between there is a position. In every language system, in case of first language, there is a system. And in case of second language, or you can call it the target language, there will be a system. System, what's the system? That system might be, that is the grammatical rules, vocabulary, structure, pattern, and everything. And whenever a language learner is intended to learn a second language, he or she tries to learn the system of target language, that means the second language. In many cases, native speakers like language cannot be learned. A Russian learner may try to learn English language. Bangladeshi learner like you and me, we want to learn English language. Okay? We can't give it guaranteed that every time my language learning will be like the language of our native English speakers. Let's make it clear, that is, suppose in Bangla আমরা ভাত খাই অথবা আমি ভাত খাই, সাবজেক্ট কি? আমি। ভাত হলো অবজেক্ট না, আর খাই হলো স্ট্রাকচারটা কি? স্ট্রাকচার হলো প্রথমে হচ্ছে সাবজেক্ট, অবজেক্ট। মেক ইট ইংলিশ, যদি আমরা এটা ইংরেজি করি তাহলে উই ইট রাইস। So the structure pattern of second language and the structure pattern of first language is different. In case of second language learner, this man Selinker, Tarry Selinker, he has observed that the second language learning of the learner, this is L1, this is L2. So whenever a L2 learner will try to learn L2, he or she can't gauge the total language system exactly. Between L1 and L2, there will be another system that is developed from in the learner's habit of learning. Between L1 and L2, that means the learner learns something. Learner learns something that is not quite similar to L1, not quite similar to L2. So between L2 and L1, language learner learns a language system. And that system is not equivalent like Bangla language. That system will not be equivalent like second language, target language. It may be English or Hungarian or something. So between L2 and L1, there will be a system that would be learned by the learner, and this middle position or this language system is called interlanguage. And this is not told by yes, Onikta. This is not my definition. This definition was given by Selinker. And this, according to Selinker, he said that interlanguage is an important aspect in the study of second language acquisition. And interlanguage refers to the systematic knowledge of language which is independent of both the learner's native language and the target language. Okay. And that is to say, it is neither the system of the native language, it is not the concept, not quite similar to the target language. So this concept of interlanguage might better be understood if we regard it a continuum between the native language and the target language. So if we make a balance between the first language and the second language, and we will make a continuum over here, pendulum over here, so the middle position, that characteristics of language will be quite different, and according to Selinker, it is an independent characteristics, or the independent language system is learned by the language learner, and that is interlanguage. Interlanguage by Tarry Selinker. This man also proposed this concept. And he is a professor emeritus of the University of Michigan and also head of the Language Institute. So this is why such kind of incidents happen. Selinker said this is like a mental gymnastics. Okay. And this happens for every learner, whatever may be the scenario. Okay. This happens for the all kinds of learners. Okay. And this contribution actually Tarry Selinker contributed in 1972. And in his paper he named this with another person, that is Corders, and the article The Significance of Learners' Errors. Okay. And in that article he gave that idea. Which the idea? That means when a learner will be learning a target language, so the learner cannot learn the target language system, and he or she cannot discard his first language learning or L2 language system. So between L1 and L2, language learner learns a different thing, as one of your fellow students has said, that like Banglish or something else. So that independent variety. Look here. That means what kind of English we know? We know that standard English or the British English, you may know the pronunciation of British English, and even the spelling pattern are different from from British English to American English, is it? So in apparent situation, we see that two different category of English language. One that is British English and another is American English. So spelling and pronunciation pattern is different from British English and American English. And also we can also make a difference from American English to Australian English. But if we go to Singaporean English, okay, if we go to Indian English, okay, so they have learned, that means India, in case of India, they use English as their second language, isn't it? So Hindi is their first language. So in this case, they have developed a pronunciation pattern. So when you see that the English people or the Indian people or the Singaporean people or Australian people, he or she will be speaking English, you can quite understand that it's an Indian English. And they, that means the British or the USA people, they will say that this is the Asian, not they say that Indian English. So Asian English, that means the Asian people try to understand the second language, that's English, but they didn't exactly learn the pronunciation pattern or other things. So they developed an independent language system based on the pronunciation and others. Like that means the mixture of English and Bengali, that can be Banglish. So this independent language system is called interlanguage. And what happens? Selinker said that it happens for the cause of language errors. There are some principles behind the interlanguage. Here we see that behind interlanguage theory, that the language of the second language learner is governed by a systematic rules, and that these rules are different from those of the language being learned and from those of the language of the learned system. So every language will have a learned system, and actually a common proverb, as I have said, that kachai naan wale bash pakle kore hash hash. So whenever in case of the second language learner, what does it do? Naturally you see that the adult people learn the target language. Actually we don't see that even if a child is born and brought up in an English speaking country, so that would not be his or her second language. That would be his language acquisition. একটা বাচ্চা বাংলাদেশে জন্মগ্রহণ করবে, সে যদি জন্মের পরে 2 বছর পর থেকে কানাডা বা আমেরিকাতে জন্মগ্রহণ করে, সেটা কিন্তু তার সেকেন্ড ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ হচ্ছে না। সেকেন্ড ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ হচ্ছে কোনটা? যখন আমরা অ্যাডাল্ট হবো, যখন আমরা about 18, যখন অ্যাডাল্ট ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ লার্নাররা ইংরেজি শিখতে চাই, সেটাকেই আমরা বলছি যে সেকেন্ড ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ লার্নিং or second language acquisition. So in that case, so what will happen? So because whenever a child will be learning language, he will be learning exact language from his or her parents, is it? But when we will be learning language from our teachers, from the academic institution or any language institution, naturally the adult people will have some language system that they have developed in their childhood. তারা বাংলা ভাষা শিখেছে, কিন্তু সেই বাংলা ভাষা শেখার পরে যখন সে টার্গেট ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ ইংলিশ কম্পিউটার শিখতে যায়, তখন তার মধ্যে কমন কিছু জিনিস লক্ষ্য করা যায়। ওয়ান অফ দ্যাম ইজ এরার্স। So why Selinker put such kind of comment? We will see. That means naturally what the cause of the language system that the learner learned in his life, we see that is the mistakes, the errors will be there. Tarry Selinker, who is in his article, views that a separate language system based on the observable output which results from a learner's attempted production of a target language. Attempted production of the target language, that means attempted whenever, that means he or she might learn English, French, Hungarian or anything else. He attempted or she attempted something to achieve his goal, but he can't do that. So he or she can't do that. However, he or she learned something that is quite different from L2, quite different from L1. That is called interlanguage. Okay. And interlanguage is naturally governed by some 3 stages basically. One of them is overt generalization, and language transfer, and another thing is overt generalization, transfer and fossilization. Why? In case of interlanguage, Tarry Selinker observed 3 stages. First one is overt generalization, second one is transfer, and third one is fossilization. Overt generalization is the pattern. Pattern, that means just you have learned something, okay? you have learned one thing, that means you want to drive a car. You know how to drive a car, and same thing will be there. That means you know how to drive a car. If you turn the wheel in the right side, the car will go right side. If you turn the wheel in the left side, car will go in the left side. And that means you have the experience or the knowledge of driving a car. And if you want to apply these in case of flying a plane, that is called overgeneralization. Here you see that in case of overgeneralization, one of the strategies used by the second language learner, only one or two examples of second language learning learners is an attempt to gain confidence in the target language. Okay? I can give an example. That means one of the students, he wanted to go abroad. Okay. Then he asked me a question that yes, how can I cope the situation? What would be the language system? What would be the teaching system in UK like that? So I said yes. Oh, this is this. But before getting the information from me, he said, oh, I know. That means most probably he has seen some YouTube video or something else. Okay. And after getting one or two examples, he has understood that he knows everything. In case of the second language learner, they might learn one or two examples of the target language and try to use that one or two examples in every spheres of second language learning phenomena. That is called overgeneralization. Suppose in Bangladesh, in which way you will be driving your car? You know that we follow our left side. Through the road, we will drive our car to following our left side. And you know that when we go to Saudi Arabia, what do they do? So if you know that, yeah, I know I have to drive the car through the left side. And after standing or after knowing this example, if you want to apply this in Saudi Arabia, then we are in the wrong. Okay. So in case of language learning phenomena, first and second language learner will try to apply these one or two minimum examples of language learning phenomena and want to apply this in his or her second language learning. That is called. Okay, a good example maybe would be here. Suppose I go to market, okay, and most probably you have learned, or a learner has learned that we can make the past participle of go or are using ed, okay. So if he or she is asked to make it past independent, then he will make it যে আমি বাজারে গিয়েছিলাম, ইংরেজি করো তো, তখন সে জানে যে ইডি যোগ করতে হয়, তখন সে কি বললো যে আই go to the market. বোঝা গিয়েছে? কারণ সে কি জেনেছে? He has learned only one example that ed যোগ করে কি করতে হয়? Past participle করতে হয়, past এবং past participle করতে হয়। এটাকে সে অ্যাপ্লাই করেছে কি? go এর জায়গায়। হ্যাঁ, played হয়তো শিখেছে, I played football, but whenever you will be using this example that yeah, আমি বাজারে গিয়েছিলাম, তখন তার ইংরেজি করছে কি সে? I go to the market. That is overgeneralization. Does it make sense? বোঝা যায়নি? বোঝা গিয়েছে? So আপনার এটা কি অর্থ yes? I don't know. Okay, so that is overgeneration. So 3 phases of language transfer, that means interlanguage, has been done or prescribed by Tarry Selinker in his article 1972. One of them is overgeneralization. Most of you have understood. Okay, let's move on to the common thing that we have discussed at the initial stage of our class, that is the language transfer. Okay, language transfer. অপেক্ষা করতে করতে কেউ বোর হয়ে যায়, অপেক্ষা করতে করতে ঠান্ডা লাগে তাতে বুঝি নেই। The second page, make it 26 করেন, where is that? Second phase of interlanguage is language transfer. Language transfer, you know, that is, the theory defines that the transfer as one of the strategies that support the language acquisition. Okay, and there are two kinds of language transfer: negative transfer and positive transfer. In our first semester class, in case of direct method, native language is not allowed, but in case of DTM, native language is why. In case of native language, according to Selinker, that native language, according to several linguists, native language is a barrier to second language learning, and for this reason direct method was applied, and no way you will be using native language in your classroom or language learning center. But in case of GTM, many linguists say that the language learning, first language is a barrier. It is not. It's helpful. In case of GTM, many linguists thought that first language is art. In case of Arabic, John Milton said that whenever Charles II came into the power of England, because Oliver Cromwell was beheaded, the new king is called Charles the First. Why? Because Charles the First beheaded in 1940, and yes, and after 1960, at the Restoration period, 1640, Charles the First was beheaded, and Charles the Second was put in exile. And next time Oliver Cromwell came in the power, there was 1649. And up to 1649, Oliver Cromwell came to the power of England until 1660. And again, Oliver Cromwell beheaded, and Charles II was restored in the monarchy of England. And here it was. At the time, John Milton was the chief advisor of Oliver Cromwell, the Puritan government, according to the history of England. So John Milton was proposed that you will be getting everything, you have to support for Charles II. Then John Milton said that let me know and judge according to my own conscience. At that time John Milton was totally blind. Many people say that বাংলা ভাষায় কথা বলতে না পারলে ভালো লাগে। And observing such kind of attitude, many linguists say that in order to make language learning cognizable or understandable, first language or the native language is helpful for language learning. Observing these two situations, Tarry Selinker said that first language has some positive effect in case of second language learning, and first language will have some negative effect to the second language learning. If first language becomes a barrier in case of second language learning, that would be the negative transfer, and if first language becomes helpful in case of the second language learning, that would be the positive transfer. How many of you are from Sylhet? Is there? No. Anyone from Chapai-Nawabganj? Okay. In case of Chapai-Nawabganj or Rajshahi, okay, they can pronounce sa. They will say sha. Yes, sha. Okay. So that means in case of pronouncing sugar, okay, sure, such kind of pronunciation they can't make this pronunciation quite good, because in case of their native language, in the Bangla language, they have learned that yes, sha. Okay, salam. Salam ke কখনো সে সালাম বলে কি হলো salam. Okay. So এই যে তার ফার্স্ট ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজের যে ক্যারেক্টারিস্টিক্স গুলো এটার কারণে তার কি হচ্ছে সে ইংরেজি এই ওয়ার্ডগুলো সে ভালোভাবে উচ্চারণ করতে পারছে না। এটা তার কি সিলেটিদের ক্ষেত্রেও তাই। সিলেটি এবং চিটাগাংয়ের ক্ষেত্রে অনেকটা, বা চিটাগাংয়ের ততটা না, কিন্তু সিলেটি ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজের ক্ষেত্রে you can observe that they can make the proper usage of standard Bengali, and for this reason that would make a problem in case of learning second language or any other language. It may be Russian, Hungarian or something else. Okay. So in case of Silet and in case of Chapanagaon, their first language, that means Bangla language, might get them in a problematic situation to understand the language. That is called negative transfer. Okay. But if we if you go to India, Indian people everywhere they have developed a language system. Okay. We in Bangladesh there are several education systems like English medium, Bangla medium, Bhasha, technical education, madrasa education. So 5 language system, education system are there, and for this reason the students are not getting good English from their school life. But in case of India, okay, they use Hindi, but many parts of the India they are very much accustomed to learn English language in their schools. Okay, so Hindi might be, and even their orientation of English language from the very beginning of their academic life, that is their school life. Sometimes Hindi or the language orientation might be helpful for language learner. As I have said in another way, the first language will help you learning. In case of the deaf language, what is the challenge of language learning? The challenge of language learning is that no way you will be able to use native language in your class. কোনোভাবেই deaf language কোনোভাবে basic language ব্যবহার করতে, কিন্তু কিভাবে আপনি মাদ্রাসা এবং তেলাপুরের ডিফারেন্স বুঝাবেন ক্লাস, কারণ দুটোরই পোর্ট্রেট একটু বুঝে যায় একটা পাখা আছে। That means in case of understanding, যখন মনের ভাষায় মাতৃভাষায় কথা বলতে গেলে এবং কোনো কিছু ব্যাখ্যা করতে গেলে আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডিং যতটা দ্রুত হয় অন্য ভাষাতে টার্গেট ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজে বলতে সেটা হয় না। So that is one of the benefits that when you will be using your target native language in case of second language learning phenomena, that would be helpful, because first language will make something understandable to you if it is explained in your first language. And such kind of transfer is called positive transfer. The second phase of interlanguage, that is interlanguage relation between second language and first language we are discussing. Another term is intralanguage, we will be coming later on. So this is the second phase of interlanguage, that is transfer, positive transfer and negative transfer. So if first language becomes barrier, that would be negative transfer. If first language becomes helpful, that would be positive transfer. According to Tarry Selinker, language transfer has these two kinds of effect, that is positive transfer and negative. Third phase will be fossilization. Fossilization, whenever students will be learning a language. Okay, look here everyone, এখানে মনে করেন এটা আমার মার্কার, ওকে, হ্যাঁ, কারণ মার্কার তো নাই। এখানে ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ লার্নিং শুরু করলো, a learner will start language learning over there. So you will learn something, okay, you will learn something and you will be first practicing. So the car will go in such a way, then he will be practicing, okay, and then he will be learning something, a new role. Suppose উনি হচ্ছে পার্টস অফ স্পিচ শিখলেন, ওকে, ইয়েস নো ভেরি গুড ইংরেজি শিখেছেন, কিছুদিন প্র্যাকটিস করলো, এরপরে উনি সেন্টেন্স শিখলেন, হি উইল বি অ্যাপ্লাইং দিস idea with up to this portion, okay, and again he or she will have learned the structure, okay, so he or she has learned something, so he has practiced in this situation. এরপরে উনি আরো একটু শিখলেন, উনি প্যারাগ্রাফ এসে রাইটিং শিখলেন, ওকে, আরো একটা জায়গায় গিয়ে দাঁড়ালো, ওকে, in one stage the language learner will, the second language learner will stop learning the language feature of the target language. And that situation is fossilization. Interlanguage fossilization is when a language learner, a second language, keep taking rules from the other native language and incorrectly applying them to the second language, and they are learning, and the result in a language system that is different from both the person native language and the second language. So fossilization is not described here little bit. So fossilization, that means the learners language learning phenomena or knowledge will be stopped or fossilized in a stage. That stage is called fossilization. Okay, and gradually, and it will be dependent on learner's ability. Okay, so one time he will be learning something, and one stage he will stop learning new methods of language learning, and that is called fossilization. So if we make the difference between in case of Tarry Selinker's interlanguage, so interlanguage is an independent language learning phenomena between second language and first language. And according to Tarry Selinker, it has 3 stages. One stage is overgeneralization, second stage is transfer, and third stage is fossilization. Overgeneralization in case of the language learner just getting a minimum idea or knowledge of language learning, he or she tries to apply his minimum idea of second learning in case of second language learning, and that is called overgeneralization. And in case of language transfer, native language is both beneficial and is a barrier as well in case of second language learning. Here we see that if first language becomes helpful, that would be the positive transfer. If first language becomes barrier, it would be the negative transfer. And in case of fossilization, the language learner in one stage will stop learning the second language, and that stage is called fossilization. That stage might occur for several reasons. That is for learner's ability or the institutions or others shortcomings, and for this reason the learner will stop improving in his or her second language learning phenomena, that is called fossilization. And another part is there, in case of interlanguage, you might be asked a question, that means what is interlanguage and what is intralanguage. So interlanguage is, that is linkage between first language and the second language, not linkage, an individual system, and intralanguage is the system within a language. Within language, that system is called intralanguage. So you have to learn that term as well. That is, what is intralanguage and what is interlanguage. That the proposal proposed by Tarry Selinker, that is the interlanguage, and the linkage between in a language, that is called interlanguage. Okay.